Please. I call to order this regular meeting of the Monument Town Council. When is today? August 7th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Hogan, will you take roll, please?
Mayor LaKind,
Here?
Mayor Pro Tem King,
Here.
Councilmember Abbott,
Here.
Councilmember Fiorito,
Here.
Councilmember Kimple,
Here.
Councilmember Chronic,
Here.
Councilmember Romanello.
Here.
Okay, first up, disclosures of conflicts of interest. Are any council members have any conflicts of interest they need to disclose? No, we can move on. All right, we have an agenda and a consent agenda. Any modifications to the agenda?
Actually, question.
Okay.
Question about, are we discussing anything on the agenda, or is this just approval of the consent agenda?
So if there's something on the consent agenda that you want to have pulled out to discuss, we can.
C, yes. 3C,
3C,
yes.
okay. And I would like to have 3F. So 3F will become 5B, and 3C will become 5C. Are there any other modifications to the consent agenda?
I have one modification to the minutes. So on the minutes, where the paragraph where it says Booth presented resolution number 51-2023, about 6 lines down, it says King and Kimple discussed the potential cost and benefits to the town with the $5.4 million impact fees. That was me and Fiorito that had that discussion.
Okay. Any other modifications? All right, then there's one other thing to add to the agenda, and that will be a short bit of information that Ms. Hogan will present regarding a festival permit application that will come after resolutions. Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda, the modified consent agenda?
I so move.
Second.
Ms. Hogan?
Councilmember Kimple,
Yes.
Councilmember Fiorito,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem King,
Yes.
Councilmember Abbott,
Yes.
Mayor LaKind,
Yes?
Councilmember Chronic,
Yes.
Councilmember Romanello.
Yes.
All right, and do we have a motion to approve the agenda as modified?
I make a motion to approve the agenda as modified.
There a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Mayor LaKind,
Yes?
Councilmember Kimple,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem King,
Yes.
Councilmember Abbott,
Yes.
Councilmember Chronic,
Yes.
Councilmember Fiorito,
Yes.
Councilmember Romanello.
Yes.
All right, that motion passes 7-0. Before we move on to the presentations, I just want to get clarity from our tech support folks that the meeting is being recorded as it's supposed to be. What is the gentleman's name?
He's trying to get him on the internet for his presentation.
I just want to make sure we're being recorded.
Yeah, so it started.
His report.
Okay. Okay, then first up, we have a presentation on the history of the Monument Cemetery by Mr. Howe and Mr. Weinfeld. And I hope it doesn't go so long as some of us may wind up in there.
You know something we don't know?
No, I read it. It was thoroughly enjoyable. So I'm looking forward to
The loose history?
your version of it. Yes.
We're sticking to it.
They got the version that matters.
My glasses off so I can see. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, council, staff, and the public. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. We'd like to tell you about a project that started with a conversation I had with Sharon Williams, July of 2010. Sharon happens to be here too, as a full witness, if you haven't met her before. And she was our town gardener at the time, and I was helping her hand water the plants in the cemetery. Sharon mentioned in passing that the town was looking for someone to update the cemetery records, and I thought it sounded interesting, so I volunteered. I was told that the project should be done in a few months in time to put it on the website. We have finally concluded it 13 years later. We're coming before you today because Ordinance 12-24010 says the cemetery is owned and operated by the Town of Monument under the administration and supervision of the Town Council. The town clerk is responsible for the daily operation of the cemetery.
I joined John in 2018, a few months after I arrived here from Herndon, Virginia. He had many sources to rely on when we were doing this project. Old handwritten ledgers like this one that had people were copying over from family Bibles. And that's where the problem started, is that they would copy things over from various Bibles and various ledgers. And the more you copy, the more dates would get changed. And this is one of the projects that we had to correct. We also had minutes from the original cemetery committee. We had various maps, including a map that was conducted from ground operating radar, ground penetrating radar, and that was conducted in 2010. That process turned up many unmarked grave sites. There are a total of 186 unmarked graves in the cemetery that we know of. The markers were made of plaster of Paris constructed by the Public Works Department, and they were very old, so they started crumbling. So 150 of them were replaced by granite markers by a scout, a Boy Scout who was trying for his Eagle Badge. The remaining 36 granite markers were reconstructed by the Public Works Department. Overall, there are 1,692 lots in Monument Cemetery. All are spoken for. The cemetery sold out in April of 2021.
We reviewed the files for every grave. There are 6 drawers full of these files in the Deputy Town Clerk Tina Erickson's office, where we did our research one day a week. We found many discrepancies in the files. For instance, mistakes were made when information in one ledger was transferred to another. We cross-checked the information in the files with the ledgers and maps and several other sources, information provided by Pikes Peak Genealogical Society, minutes of the meetings of the original cemetery committee, which later turned into the Cemetery Association, Town of Monument cemetery reports, Town of Monument correspondence, and finally, town historian Lucille Lavlette's book, Through the Years at Monument, Colorado. If we needed more information, we sometimes turned to Find a Grave website and Ancestry.com that Michael would pull up on his phone and try for other information.
We made sure that each file had a photo of the gravestone. Many of the files already had photos. John and Town Clerk Laura Hogan and a student named Lauren Knoll had photographed what was available at the time in December of 2011. Since then, John and I have made several trips to the cemetery to always update any new graves, and we have photos for most every file that we have on in the town hall. One of the photos is of Alonzo Welty's grave. His gravestone says he was buried in 1860. It's the oldest marked grave in the cemetery. However, his gravestone is made out of a more modern stone, so we don't know who provided it. It is not from 1860. Welty's burial actually predates the cemetery by 6 years. It was on May 28, 1886, that Charles Bissell sold 5 acres of land to the town for $1 for use as a cemetery. However, people had been buried there unofficially for some time. Another notable cemetery resident is F.M. Brown. He was the victim of a shootout over a cattle dispute. Legend has it that Daniel Davidson shot Brown in Limbach Saloon in Monument on October 21st, 1876. His gravestone says simply, he was killed.
Some of our cemetery visits involved what we called poking around to find gravestones that were marked on the maps, but there was no gravestone there. So we took some sort of poker and dug into the ground, and I'd hear a thunk, or he'd hear a thunk. We'd say, looks like there should be a gravestone down there. So we would get busy with our little diggers and we would work on getting them, and we'd stick it in the ground where we suspected was a grave. And if we heard a thunk, we knew we'd hit something, probably a tombstone. We'd get on our hands and knees and dig with the trowel to unearth it. We knew that anyone passing by might think we were grave robbers. Many of the files had a certificate telling the cause of death. When I first started, these documents were just in a box, stacked. I alphabetized them and gave them to the town clerk, and they made sleeves for them so that each one was inserted in the file and therefore alphabetically corrected for the files.
some of these causes of death were really interesting. One just said homicidal, not homicide, but homicidal as a cause of death. Another certificate gave the cause of death as imbecile. The term imbecile was once used by psychiatrists to refer to people with moderate to severe intellectual disability. But how that could contribute to someone's death, it doesn't say. And then there was the poor guy whose cause of death was accidental traumatism by fertilizer sprayer. Yeah, all this and more are included in what I call a loose history of Monument Cemetery. A digital copy of this 73-page report is in your meeting packet tonight, down at the bottom. This hard copy is going to be in the cemetery files in the Deputy Town Clerk's office in the Town Hall.
And I have a little addendum to what he just said so subtly, but doesn't like to pat himself on the back. He asked me, we received, got to a certain point, and he said, well, do you have any other project in mind for what we're going to do? And I said, I've always wanted to do a history of the cemetery of some sort. He said, well, that'll take 5 pages. How many is it?
73.
All from minutes and notes and scraps of paper. He typed it all up and put it together in this beautiful folder.
It's an interesting history in that a lot of it is dry. I typed over the minutes that were in the folders. So we didn't have minutes for every committee, but there were certain themes that we found. There was a group that they wanted to beautify the cemetery by cutting down some bushes and maybe pulling up some things, and that turned out, they thought they were doing something good, but it turned out there were a lot of people that thought that their ancestors' graves should stay the way they were, and it caused a big controversy. So that went back and forth, and there was a constant effort to try to find ways to pay for the cemetery, and they kept trying to form a cemetery district. They looked at all sorts of different ways to do that, and it just never worked out. So the town is still paying for it now.
We do have some recommendations. Some of the ordinances need to be updated, like changing the Board of Trustees, which is what it says, to the Town Council. This is a particular peeve of ours. When someone is buried, they are interred, not as we have seen in many of the notes and minutes, they are interned. No, anybody who's interning is not doing their job. They're done.
Even some of the certificates of death had interned on it.
Right. There are no interns at the cemetery. Think about that for a minute. We also think the Public Works Department should continue to unearth sunken gravestones. They do think because of the weather, sometimes the lawnmowers go over them, the flat ones, and they press them down, and then they get lost in the dirt and the grass grows over. That's how we found some of them. So that's what was happening with them. And repair and clean headstones when they're needed. Finally, it would greatly help visits to the cemetery if there was a kiosk of some sort that contained a cemetery map. People have to come to the town. Well, if it's after 5 o'clock or on the weekend, the town isn't open, and would be very helpful. Most cemeteries that I've seen, and Michael's visited a number, they have some sort of kiosk, so we're asking you to look at it. We'd like to thank Laura Hogan and Tina Erickson, who isn't here tonight. Thank you, Laura, whose expertise and knowledge of the cemetery has helped us immensely. And for the use of what has originally Laura's office now is Tina's. We worked there. They put up with our dark humor and constant chatter, some of which was actually about the work we were supposed to be doing. We'd also like to thank Town Manager Mike Foreman and the Public Works Department, especially James Schubauer. Did he make it back from vacation? And all those who help maintain the cemetery. If you have any questions, I'd like you to refer to Michael and he can answer things. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yeah,
We have a presentation for John and Michael for all the hard work they've done. This is for you. That's for you. Really.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I do have one, we have some questions, but I have one that I would like to ask. And in the process of going through all of the records, did you come across any voter registration cards?
Not a one.
I had to ask.
That's fine. Well, it's been fun.
It's,
It's been very educational. Our community news photographers, we have two of them here. Yeah. Anyway, it's been a lot of fun. It's been very educational. Sorting them out. We went through every record 3 times, over 1,000 records in the files. And on the third time, we said, how did we miss this the first 2 times? You know, proofreading and looking and trying to compare. And sometimes we found information from newspaper clippings that just happened to be loose in the some other files, and matched them up. I had to do some research, and he'd pull up his phone there, and we could match them up to the records and update them. And people do call, people do come, and they talk to the clerk and say, well, was Aunt Nellie buried here in 1865? And you know, probably not, but at least we hope that the file is as updated as it can be. So that's. I think
So
we've
who
gone
do you
as far as we can
consider
go.
the most famous person or infamous person in the cemetery?
Aha. Ta-da.
Well, we actually, I'm going to see if I can find this. There, FM Brown, of course, is our big claim to fame in that, because that's a shootout over a cattle dispute. So that you can't get much more west than that. But what we have in this report, I have a section that's celebrities that are buried in Monument Cemetery. These are people whose names are the same or similar to actual celebrities. They aren't the celebrities. For instance, we have a Freddy Krueger, and we have a Jack Kennedy. We have an Anna Frank, not Anne Frank. We have Howard Johnson. Justin Hayward, who is a member of the Moody Blues. There's someone named Justin Hayward here. Paul Peterson, who was on the Donna Reed show. There's a Paul Peterson here. So there are celebrities, but not actual celebrities, not until later.
Well, I read the whole thing. I found it extremely well done, very informative, and I enjoyed it. It was just a nice piece of history. Thank you for doing that. It was really, it's remarkable. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I do have a couple questions. Would you be willing to write a condensed one for the UCCS History Journal? Because the UCCS History Department publishes a journal. I want to say once a year or twice a year, and I can put you in touch with the History Department.
You just tell me how long you want it, and
I'll put you in touch with the History Department, because I think they would get a kick out of it, especially with all of the work, especially the research, and they do once a semester, at the end of the semester, they do presentations with all of the work that the masters and undergrad students do, and it might be worth asking to see if you could do a presentation there, because I think the students there would get a kick out of all of the research they get to do. So good on you for that. So I'll get you.
Okay.
I'll send the information to Mike Foreman, and he can, because I think he's got your contact info.
Definitely.
Okay.
John and I really enjoy going visiting cemeteries. We've gone to most of the big ones in the area. My daughter actually, we live in Bridgeport, Connecticut, across from a beautiful, huge cemetery, lots of grounds, a lot of grass. And that's, for Bridgeport, that's as much grass as you're going to find. So we used to take her there all the time. And my wife and I are still interested. We just toured a fascinating cemetery in Silverton, Colorado. They have a lot of money in Silverton for their cemetery. And what they have done is they have reconstructed gravestones that actually have the causes of death on it for the more interesting causes of death. And it really pointed out how hard life was in this mining town back in the 1800s. There was one woman who froze to death. There was another one who died shoveling snow for the mine. Another one who died in an avalanche along with 10 mules. There were lynchings by vigilantes. it was fascinating. And they were granite with black engraving on it. And we saw maybe 30 or more, but they keep adding all the time. They have a very large budget there. So I'd recommend if anyone's interested in that sort of thing, to have a facility.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
It's awesome.
Really great.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Get it.
Okay, next up, Northern Nature Center, Todd Martz from El Paso County Parks Department. Welcome.
Hello. That was very interesting. I'm afraid I might not be that interesting. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm going to try to share my screen. I've got a PowerPoint presentation. I could introduce myself at the same time, but I can't do them both at the same time.
Can you just move your mic?
Oh,
There you go.
there we go.
Thank you.
It worked. I do have a lot of icons. All right. So my name is Todd Martz, and I am the Executive Director for El Paso County Parks and Community Services. What that encompasses is all the parks, trails, the nature centers, the county fair, environmental services, and 4-H and extension. So I'm the liaison to them too. So big bucket. And I've done it for about 2 years now, but my original career started at the nature centers at Bear Creek. And so about 27 years ago, so I have a little bit of history with El Paso County and the nature centers and some success. I think we've demonstrated. Even 20 years ago in our master plan, we recognized that we were missing a portion of El Paso County with the northern part. And so we started to look into it in 2013, actually. So, but we started a feasibility study in 2019. And please feel free to stop me as I'm going if you have any questions. The feasibility study was designed to figure out which of the North District parks we should look at and which one should we focus in on. And it was a tough choice. We've got the Pineries, we've got Black Forest Regional Park, we've got Fox Run, and then we even have a little bit further east at Homestead. And so we looked at all of those. We did a couple of public meetings, and then we had a team that went out and looked at each area and measured different things. One of them, we wanted to be closer to the population base to make sure that there's an interest in it. We wanted to make sure that there was the infrastructure that could support it. And so Fox Run quickly floated to the top. We did a master interpretive plan starting to talk about what do we want to do at the Nature Center. And then COVID hit and kind of put us all on hold. But in 23, we started the conceptual design. So we've hired a company, TDG Architecture, and they've been working with us on the design. But along with that, they're also looking at the site plan. So we have a landscape architect. How does it fit into the park? We also hired a exhibit design company. So we're trying to figure out what are we going to do with the exhibits, and I'll go into more detail on those. In 23, we're also launching a community engagement. So we were just up in Monument a couple weeks ago at the Tri-Lakes Cares. So we go out to different group events and we are collecting public input. We've gotten quite a bit. We've done 2 public meetings and we'll continue to do more, but we want to make sure that we're reaching out in the design phase instead of afterwards. We're doing the design development, like I said, construction beginning in 24. You know, it might happen, but probably is going to be later on. 25 might be a better look. So I'll go through just kind of some of these are 20% design. So we're still very early in the design, but this is what we're looking at. And the reason I show this one is the ADA trail. So if you're familiar with Fox Run, we don't have a lot of ADA accessible trails. And so that's one thing that we wanted to do with the site is make sure that that has that access. The other reason I have this slide is for the parking lot. We really are going to be looking at how do we mitigate where we put the parking lot. We want to make sure that if we take down any trees, it's very minimal. And let me go back one more time. So if you notice where the star is in Fox Run, That's where we're looking at it. It's a little bit away from the active use area where the ponds are, but it's not all the way up into the fallen timber wilderness area. So if you know the road that I'm talking about that goes into Fox Run, we're going to restore about half of it. There's a bathroom up there and a little lollipop, we call it. We're going to take out that bathroom and put in trees and restore that whole area to kind of mitigate any disturbance we do with the nature center. So here's kind of the layout. We're looking at 2 buildings. So we're not going to, it's not just a nature center. We want to make sure it's a community focused building too. And so we've got on the right-hand side, a multi-purpose room. We've talked to a couple Eagle Scout or Boy Scout leaders in the area, very interested in that. A women's club has called me a couple times asking me when they can meet there. So we're going to be very open to that. The nature center's on the left side, and then the raised deck in the middle will also be kind of another gathering spot. And so for bigger events, you could do something out in the middle too, and also a time for field trips to gather out there. And this is the design. Very, it's pretty exciting what they're looking at doing. Again, 20%. So we're still going to be cutting some things, but you can see solar panels all over. We're looking at trying to make this as efficient as possible. Close to zero is what we're after. And the tower there, I'll show you some more pictures of that, but the tower is going to get up above the tree line so you can see the whole Black Forest area and the Front Range. And then the thing they added just in the last couple months is the canopy walk that goes up to the left. I'll show you some more pictures of that. This is kind of the front facing. You can see the tower, and then the canopy walk is going to go from the tower, and it'll go straight into the hillside and dead end in the hill. So it'll be kind of like what you see in the rainforest, except it's going to be in the ponderosa pine, and it's going to go, so you go at the top of the trees and then you work your way down, but handicap accessible. So wheelchairs, strollers can all use it. There's the entrance. One of the things that the architect came up with, we really want to minimize the impact from the canopy walk. And so you'll see the structure that kind of holds the canopy up is kind of based off of what you see at ski resorts. So when you're on the trails, you won't notice it as much. It's not going to be a giant structure holding it up. And really what we're doing this for is the Nature Center. So the Nature Center's mission is to connect and inspire stewards. So education is the focus of what we do there. And so we're looking at what do we want to accomplish at Fox Run Nature Center. This is also kind of a neat picture of the tower and the canopy walk and kind of give you some perspective on how it goes into the hillside. So we looked at what do we want to interpret in Fox Run. Of course, the ponderosa pine forest is going to be a big theme. We're going to do the fire, of course, and then the Palmer Divide, as you all know, living here, that has a huge impact on the weather, and we want to make sure we're interpreting that. So this is kind of a overwhelming, but a good way for us to figure out what we're going to do. And then I'll go through kind of the exhibit space. I won't go into too much detail, but just so you know, I've talked to Terry. And we're talking about having a section either in the forest area or in the reception area that can talk about Monument and Palmer Lake. So we'd like to have that as part of it. We definitely will talk about trail etiquette. That came up a dozen times during the public meeting. People want to make sure that everyone understands how and what we should be doing on our trails, stay on the trails. Bikes, horses, things like that need to respect each other. See here. So you can see that highlighted is the forest floor and the trail etiquette. The pictures you see around there, there's just kind of some ideas. We really haven't designed the exhibits yet, but these are some of the exhibit company came up with some ideas for us. In the center is going to be a pretty dramatic, and I talked to Shields a little bit. They've got this in some of their stores where they've got a giant artificial tree in the middle of their store. We're looking at doing something like that with a ponderosa pine. So you see the circle there in the red, that'll be the ponderosa pine, talking about Black Forest, healthy forest, and the three-dimensional side is right there. So you can see, you'll be able to walk around the base of the tree, go up to the second level, either through stairs or the elevator, and then you'll be able to see the middle of the tree too. The left corner is going to be talking about fire, and we working with Colorado State Forest Service, wildland fire. We want to make sure that we're sharing some of the challenges we've had with fire and some of the things we can do as residents and as visitors to make sure that we're respecting the forest. We'll talk about fire mitigation. Will hopefully be a great example of that in the building. Palmer Divide, I mentioned that. We'll talk about the weather, the water. We'll talk about the water table and all of the good and bad about the water table. We want to make sure that we're talking about that in the Nature Center. And then this is an area that we've learned at the other nature centers have been very successful. It's a discovery nook, just a place for kids or families to kind of get separated and make sure that they're not feeling the busy part of it. It's been very successful at both Bear Creek and Fountain Creek. And then the tower itself, we will have exhibits going up that'll be seasonal. So we'll change these out, but we'll talk about the winter in Fox Run all the way around the year. And then the canopy walk will also, I like the one picture on the top left, it's got reusing material. So if we do, which we will probably have to cut down a few trees, we're going to reuse some of that in some of the signage along the canopy walk. All right, so I've been doing this, I think, I don't know, 15 times. 12 of them have been for funders. And so give you a kind of a quick synopsis of what we're looking at here. It's right around $12 million right now. And the county has come up with $1 million. I have in my budget, my parks budget, another $1 million. And so we've got 2 already. And then we've talked to some pretty good funders. And so I think we're getting closer. We're talking El Pomar, GOCO, some of the developers in the area. They've been very positive and supportive. We will be doing fundraising all the way through 24. And what I'd ask of you is if you know people or companies or organizations that you think I should talk to, would love to hear your advice. I won't just go and talk to them without you telling me, but I think it's an exciting enough project. Yeah, I probably can't in a public meeting say about all the excitement that some of these companies have talked about, but I can tell you that there's a few that are pretty excited about the project. So that's kind of what we're doing right now. The fundraising will last through 23, probably into 24, and then we'll start to look at construction in late 24, early 25. Any questions? I heard somebody say exciting somewhere. So any questions for me or suggestions?
Any questions from the council?
Yeah, I have one.
Okay.
So is the Parks Department also in charge of conservation easements for El Paso County?
I am, yep.
You are? Okay,
We are.
great. Are you going to have any kind of exhibit on conservation easements?
You know, that's a great point because we're not just going to have just Fox Run. We're going to talk about all of our parks. And so there'll be in that one section where in the entry, we'll talk about the pineries. And that's a great example of a conservation easement right there. So the conservation easement on the pineries is the reason we're not doing a nature center at the pineries because they do restrict, the easement does restrict what you can do. So
Do you know how many conservation easements are in El Paso County?
I do
For
not.
El Paso County.
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
I was just curious.
I've got that one, Paint Mines, Jones Park, Bear Creek Regional Park. And then there's a couple of open spaces that I have. I could get that to you, Steve, though.
Oh, I could probably look it up on the
yeah,
website. I was just curious.
I've been here for 2 years, so I'm still learning that stuff, but
Yeah.
I should have that in my head, so I'll get that.
Are you gonna, when you talk to the Ponderosa pines and the forest, are you also gonna include the Native American aspects, especially the
Sure.
I forget what they're called, the what? Prayer trees.
Yep,
Thank you.
Yep. So
Okay, good. Excellent.
we are, and we definitely will. The current term that we're using right now is culturally modified trees, but it's a very sensitive topic. But to me, it's very interesting. I mean, those trees are pretty cool. They're just neat to look at and to wonder how that happened. And there's a lot of theories on how it could have. Absolutely, we'll be interpreting that. There's one of them that fell down in the pineries, and we're going to move it over. And it's just a great example of the bend. So, yep, as sensitive as we can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does this include extending or connecting the two documented trails on El Paso County's website that are in Monument right now? Like
So there's a Fox Run Regional Trail that's going to,
Yeah.
it does not yet, no.
Okay.
But what I do see this as is a catalyst to help us with some of the problems we have all the way across Fox Run and North District parks. There's a lot of needs that I have. And so the success at both nature centers, what we've learned is they can facilitate some of that fundraising for us. And this nature center will be designed just for that.
One other question.
Yes, sir.
There's as you're going through the presentation, I was seeing a lot of potential Eagle Scout projects.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But yeah, I think engaging I know you mentioned engaging the Boy Scout troops, but engaging the Boy Scout and Girl Scout troops in some of these projects would be huge for them.
It's a great idea. One of the things that I think we definitely will is that restoration of the road and the restroom right now. Taking that out is going to be a lot of manual hard work, but it's going to be a huge change. So if you've been up that road, you know the erosion is a real problem. Once we start to restore that, that's going to stop some of that. So yeah, and there's trails currently that go around this site. What will happen with the ADA trails is we're going to incorporate some of them, but some of them are in the wash. And so they're not a good place to have a trail already, but we won't eliminate trails. We're going to add to the trails. So it won't decrease the trails, just make them better. And I think you're the history. Yeah, we'll absolutely be talking about the history. I skimmed over it, but there's one slide that talks about Fox Run. It's a fox farm, so we're not going to probably go into great detail about what they did there, but the history of Fox Run is really interesting, and so we'll have that in the Nature Center.
So there's been a lot of here's the question. You're talking about where that existing lavatory is in the parking.
Yeah.
That's going to be removed. That's up on the northeast portion.
Yep. See if I can
So in that location, there's been a lot of reported break-ins and thefts and stuff like that when people are on the trail. I mean, I go up there and I take the dogs, and it's a nice walk if when
Sure.
you're doing the whole thing. So with this nature center, who responds to an emergency or a 911 call?
Sure. So I've doubled my security force from 2 to 4, which isn't a lot, but it's a lot more than I had. And they've been really good. And the sheriff's office has really been our go-to for Fox Run. They do respond. The pros, I think, of the nature center being there, it's going to, I think it'll diminish some of the negative behavior up in that area.
Yeah.
So,
the other thing that comes to mind is because it looks like a beautiful design, just worried about the vandalism too.
For sure. We've talked a lot about cameras. We've talked about at Pineries and one of our South District parks. We have a gate now that closes according to a clock. So there might be a gate at the bottom to close it off at night. But we will have security cameras, and we'll be sure to factor that in. We're adding a tower, so that's going to be a challenge. So.
All right, any other questions?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
All right, thank you for the presentation.
Appreciate your time. Thank you to Terry Hayes.
Before we go on to our ordinance, Ms. Hogan, I think I made a mistake on the order. Those resolutions I put under ordinances, they would be moved from 3C to 6A and 3F to 6B. I just put them.
So we're going to address ordinances and then resolutions and then act as the liquor licensing
Yes.
authority. Okay.
I just threw them under ordinances and they should be under resolutions. Okay, next up we have ordinance number 17, 2023, an ordinance approving a conditional use for 267B North Washington for recreation, entertainment, indoor use, and downtown business zone district. Jeff.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is for 267B Washington Street. This is a conditional use. The project context, the project site is located at 267 Washington Street in downtown Monument. The exterior of 267 Washington, this is the picture of that east side of the building with Suite A lot shown. Some project history. So Bloom Healing Arts is the applicant. They requested a zoning verification in June of 2023. This is to allow them to begin some of their business operations, which included one-on-one appointments, client-based, small group healing and training sessions, and yoga sessions for individual clients. The director allowed them to classify themselves as a clinic, which is a permitted use under downtown business zone district, so that Healing Arts could begin operations, and that is further discussed in section 1803-380, Schedule of Standard Zoning District Uses. Clinic means a facility that is established primarily to furnish outpatient medical services, as per section 118.07.110, words and terms. So I think the point here being outpatient being the idea of who these clients are for this particular service for Bloom Healing Arts. The applicant wanted to have the ability to provide open yoga classes sessions for the public for larger class sizes that weren't currently allowed under the clinic use. Staff informed the applicant that they would need to reclassify their business use as recreation and entertainment indoor, which is a conditional use under the downtown business zone district. Recreation and entertainment indoor means uses that provide recreation or entertainment activities within an enclosed environment. Specific use types include, but are not limited to, movie theaters, bowling alleys, fitness centers, as they apply here, or indoor shooting ranges was a part of that. Section 118.07.110, words and terms. And at the conditional use application was necessary, staff shared this with the applicant, to allow that their yoga classes could be open to the public. Section 1803.320, conditional use. This is the general terms of that particular use. Won't go into all of that, but we're providing it here for record. We'll jump to the review criteria. So section D. Review and approval criteria. The conditional use shall conform to the following review and approval criteria. 1, the proposed use is generally consistent with the comprehensive plan and other relevant town goals and policies. 2, that the proposed use is generally consistent with the purpose and intent of the zoning district in which it is located. 3, the proposed use is generally consistent with any applicable use-specific standards set forth in this title. 4, the proposed use is compatible with adjacent uses in terms of scale, site design, and operating characteristics, hours of operation, traffic generation, lighting, noise, odor, dust, and other external impacts. 5, facilities and services, including sewage and waste disposal, water, gas, electric, police and fire protection, and streets and transportation, as applicable, will be available to serve the subject property while maintaining adequate levels of service for existing development. 6, that the adequate assurances of continuing maintenance have been provided. And 7, any significant adverse impacts anticipated to result from the use will be mitigated or offset to the maximum extent reasonably practicable. E brings up site plan requirements. So an approval of a conditional use is also subject to approval of the site plan application. Decisions on each type of application shall be based on the applicable approval criteria in this section for the conditional use and section 1803-150 of this chapter for the site plan. Just diving into that particular item a little further, if you go to section 1803-150A in the Muni Municipal Code, it requires a site plan only for any new construction or building addition. That's not what we're looking at today. We're looking at a conditional use change for a tenant within an existing building. So therefore, staff finds that the requirement of a site plan associated with a conditional use does not apply to a change of use that does not involve new construction or building additions. To the point of generally consistent, notice that that terminology is used in 3 of the criteria, and so this is a codified term that we are using. Staff went into deeper research to try and help council with a better understanding of what generally consistent means. So through some review and research, here are some notes to be taken into account. The court system regularly apply a rule of construction that meanings ascribed to words are the common meanings, and usually go to accepted dictionaries to determine the common meanings of words. So therefore, the word generally is an adverb meaning in disregard of specific instances and with regard to an overall picture, or usually. Synonyms involved are commonly, normally, ordinarily, typically. The word usually in particular is defined to include according to the usual or ordinary course of things, most often as a rule. Therefore, generally consistent would likely be interpreted by a court as being more likely to consistent as it's, or instead of less likely consistent. Or another way of interpreting it would be is consistent with a majority or more than 50% of the comprehensive plan, the purpose and intent of the zoning district, or the applicable use specific standards. Staff sees both interpretations valid, and so staff has chosen to take an approach of applying one or number 2 of this when looking at these criteria. Comprehensive plan, the first review. Though there are 6 chapters to the comprehensive plan, we feel that we've looked at it and that this application meets 4 of those 6 chapters. In chapter 1, the monument community, page 12, the plan should be used to guide decision-making regarding character, infrastructure, land use, development proposals. Policy decisions should be in line with the relevant plan components. Page 13, reviewed development. So review of any land use application is a 2-step process in the comprehensive plan. Step 1, finding of substantial compliance with the future land use map, or FLUME, and step 2, finding of consistency with the adopted policies. Taking that further, looking at the actual FLUME itself, the designated future land use for this site was downtown. Types that can be considered in downtown are specialty retail services and entertainment, live, work, housing, professional services, mixes of housing choice, civic infrastructure. In looking at it this way, staff found that a yoga studio is being more likely consistent instead of less likely consistent. So we took the first of the 2 interpretations with the types in the downtown land use category of the FLUME. Regarding attributes and characteristics of the downtown category, there's a broad mix of uses are asked to be promoted. Buildings that provide interest at the street level through the display of goods, internal operations, or informational displays. Developments that minimize visible at-grade on-site parking. Walkability is critical. Promote a wide range of complementary uses within a half-mile radius, including public facilities and amenities, convenience and specialty retail housing above retail uses, and allow for infill housing. Allow for small businesses to relocate to historic homes. Developments that maintain and enhance the historic pattern of trees, lawns, and attached sidewalks. Destination small business and retail uses that are attractive to pedestrians and do not generate a high volume of vehicle trips. Small businesses, restaurants, and establishments that provide limited or specialty services and retail to the Tri-Lakes area. I've highlighted those things within these attributes that we felt applied to this conditional use, and staff's finding is that a yoga studio is being more likely consistent instead of less likely consistent with the attributes and characteristics in the downtown land use category of the flume. Chapter 2, community engagement, which captures vision, values, and viewpoints. Page 16 in the community vision, staff looked at all 5. 3 of the 5 are applicable, 2 are not. Staff finding was that the yoga studio as a land use is consistent with a majority or more than 50% of the vision of the comprehensive plan. Community values. Staff looked at the 4 different community values that were expressed. 3 of the 4 apply, 1 does not. Staff found that a yoga studio as a land use is consistent with a majority or more than 50% of the values of the comprehensive plan. In terms of viewpoints, these are the first 4 of the 5. Only 1 is really applicable to what's being discussed. Of the remaining 5, it's not really applicable. So in looking at it this way from viewpoint, staff felt that a yoga studio as a land use is being more likely consistent instead of less likely consistent with the viewpoints of the comprehensive plan. Chapter 5, the policy framework, intent, opportunities, and policies, starting on page 49. There are a number of strategic goals that are listed. There are only really 3, 2 of which really aren't applicable. Only 1 is create a community gathering place, activities and events to reinforce a sense of community. So staff's finding of a yoga studio as a land use being more likely consistent instead of less likely consistent with the strategic goals of the comprehensive plan. There are 7 element chapters to the comprehensive plan as well. Staff took the liberty to suggest that 3 of the 7 are applicable, where chapters 2, 3, 4, and 6 are not. Staff's question, just bringing this up as a notion of what do we mean by generally consistent, should we determine this application is only 42% consistent with the comprehensive plan? 3 divided by 7 equals 42%. That doesn't seem like an appropriate application of the comprehensive plan in reviewing for general consistency. Just a point to be made. Moving on, chapter 5, the policy framework, land use element, pages 50 through 51, land use intent. Citizens of Monument recognize that the town will grow, but are determined to maintain the elements of place that create the small town atmosphere. Valued by our citizens, the community seeks to grow in a manner that maintains a healthy balance between residential and non-residential development, preservation of the area's natural assets, and connectivity between local destinations and neighborhoods is paramount to maintaining the desired sense of place. Going further with chapter 5, policy framework, the land use element, and going into opportunities, there are 7, only 2 of the 7 are applicable. LUA with 2,389 gross acres of land available for development. The future land use plan provides an opportunity to move from single-use developments to a mix of complementary land uses. These uses can be developed into various activity nodes, thereby ensuring an appropriate balance of live, work, and play environments. Downtown is one of those activity nodes in staff's interpretation of that. LUF, reinforce downtown's role as a Tri-Lakes regional center with the concentration of government offices, not-for-profit agencies, educational facilities, and unique local shops and restaurants to attract additional business also applied. Looking to the policies portion of land use, 2 of 8 are applicable. LU3, allow for a wider array of land use types to meet changing community needs. LU7, reinforce downtown role as a community and Tri-Lakes Regional Center with specialty shopping, entertainment, recreation, and special events. Community identity element, looking at its intent. Develop and foster Monument's unique identity and image. Going further to the opportunities, we have 1 of 3 opportunities in the community identity element that apply. C1B, capitalize on the unique features and attributes most often mentioned by those that have a stake in the future of Monument, a great school system, the small town feel, historic downtown unique shops, and special events like July 4th, the physical beauty of the area, the openness and the welcoming nature of residents, and the community's economic role in Tri-Lakes region. Staff's finding is that a yoga studio is a land use being more likely consistent instead of less likely consistent with the opportunities of the community identity element of the plan. Moving to the policies, 1 of 8 of 10 are shown here. 2 of those 8 are applicable. C12, promote the development of community gathering places on both sides of the I-25 corridor. CI7, encourage and promote the development of cultural venues, civic activities, eating and entertainment, especially retail shopping, and recreational activities in the downtown area. 9 through 10 of the 10, 0 are applicable of the community identity element. Moving to economy element, the intent of the economy element is to strive to create a sustainable balance of residential and non-residential uses that provide a range of housing and employment opportunities for the residents of Monument, continuing to provide a wide range of commercial activities within town limits to serve the regional trade area. With the economy's elements opportunities, 2 of the 5 are applicable. EDC, continue to promote Monument as the business, shopping service, employment, and activity hub for the Tri-Lakes region. EDE, the professional diversity of Monument residents coupled with the high proportion of sole proprietors, home-based businesses, and small businesses can serve to attract the grown businesses. Staff's finding is that a yoga studio as a land use being more likely consistent instead of less likely consistent with the opportunities of the economic element of the comp plan. Policies of the economic element. 2 of 4 are applicable. ED3, work with the chamber, neighboring governments, and other organizations on the collection, presentation, and distribution of information regarding Monument and the Tri-Lakes area, including community activities and events. ED4, capitalize on the concentration of government, education, religious, and services in the downtown area. Staff's finding is that a yoga studio is a land use being more likely consistent instead of less likely consistent with the policies of the economy element of the comprehensive plan. Staff's findings are generally consistent with the comprehensive plan. Staff finds, after a thorough review, that the items identified in this presentation meet criteria 1 of 7 of Section 1803-320D, review and approval criteria 1. The proposed use is generally consistent with the comprehensive plan and other relevant town goals and policies. Moving on to existing zoning. Downtown business zoning district intent. The purpose of the downtown business zone district is to provide for and encourage development and redevelopment that preserves and enhances the unique character of downtown Monument. North of the site is downtown business. South of the site is downtown business. The entire area is downtown business. We have a venue space. We have a design studio. We have some single-family residential, and we have a commercial tap room. Staff finds these items meet the criteria number 2 of 7 of Section 1803-320D, review and approval criteria 2. The proposed use is generally consistent with the purpose and intent of the zoning district in which it is located. Improvement location certificate. This was what was provided by the client, the applicant, in lieu of a site plan. There will be no changes to the existing infrastructure on site. Space is an open studio within a multi-tenant building. The building owners are renting Suite B. This meets Section 1803-320D, review and approval criteria number 3 and 4. Section 1803-150A, just bringing that up again, requires a site plan only for new construction or building additions, and therefore staff finds that the requirement of a site plan associated with the conditional use does not apply to change of use that does not involve new construction or a building addition. Project analysis taking it further. Suite A and B each have their own parking lots. The applicant provided a parking plan for their lot, which illustrates enough parking for the conditional use. Recreation centers require 1 space for 150 square feet of floor area, which would be 5 spaces for this property. For this property. The proposed parking plan would have 8 parking spaces in the existing lot. Yoga classes are capped at around 8 to 10 people, with 1 instructor being present. Instructors will use existing nearby on-street parking if it's necessary. This meets Section 1803-320D, review and approval criteria number 5. Further analysis. Snow removal is the responsibility of the applicant per their lease agreement, which meets Section 1803-320D review and approval criteria number 6. The impact of this conditional use to wildlife, traffic, schools, and drainage is negligible, as the space is already being used without concern, and the structure was approved previously. Meets Section 1803-320D review and approval criteria number 7. Referral agency comments. Monument Fire Protection District, no issues. Town of Monument Parks, no issues. No concerns. Tri-Lakes Chamber of Commerce, they support this use in the downtown. Public notice pursuant to Section 1801-260D and Table 1.2 of the Town of Monuments Municipal Code. At least 15 days prior to the public hearing, a notice was published in the legal section of a newspaper of general circulation within the town. A sign was posted facing and reasonably visible and legible from each adjacent public right-of-way, and a mailed notice was sent to the owners of property abutting the subject property within 500 feet. No letters of opposition and no letters of support were received. So in further reviewing, staff finds that they meet all 7 of the criteria. Staff finds proposed ordinance number 17/2023, an ordinance approving a conditional use for recreation entertainment indoor for property located at 267B North Washington Street to be in 100% compliance with the review and approval criteria outlined in Section 1803-320 of the Town of Monuments Land Development Code. And that completes our presentation.
Well, that was thorough.
As requested.
Is the applicant here? Is there anything that you would like to add? Just in case the 45 slides before.
I feel
didn't
like I
cover.
have an additional presentation. My name's Katrina Maldonado, and I'm representing our application process. I just wanted to say thank you. They did an amazing job guiding us through, and it was a great learning process for me as well. But that's all I have to say, unless you guys have questions.
Right. Any questions for either staff or the applicant?
I have one question for you.
Yes.
So this is there a retail component to this?
We will have eventually. That's not our ultimate focus, and so I imagine that's something that we could add to our space under our what we're doing for our business. It would be complementary to anything that we're doing around the healing arts.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And how many, because I know the YMCA does yoga on that side of I-25.
Right.
How many other yoga studios on this side of the town are there?
What I'm aware of, I think Silver Keys offers classes, YMCA offers classes. While we were in this process, I believe another studio opened between Monument and Palmer Lake, which is amazing. And so our approach is, we have the name Bloom Healing Arts. We've actually started with art classes for now, and we kind of want to encompass everything. So that won't be the sole thing that we offer.
Okay, yeah.
We're doing our due diligence so that we can legally offer that to the public and be in the process that Monument has set. But yeah, and so I think it's wonderful. If anybody has not tried yoga and some of these things yet, come to one of these great places and try it out. But yeah,
Okay.
It's definitely something I think that could be added even beyond us.
Yeah, it just seems to me that you're providing a targeted need in an area that
Right.
probably needs it location-wise.
Thank you.
And we're saying that you're expecting or anticipating 8 to 10 in a class?
Yeah, it's a small space. And so we have some neat classes that we're planning already, including things like chair yoga, sober yoga, some yin nidra that really focuses on folks who may want that mental health aspect with it.
So,
And so these are typically smaller type of classes where
Yeah.
you're not crawling all over each other and right next to each other.
so do you anticipate having classes throughout the day or just like once or twice a day? Or what is your vision and goal?
Yeah. During typical business hours, I believe right now our earliest class that we are in planning is 9 a.m. start. So nothing that would be crazy. I know other yoga studios get really early, so I don't know if we'll dive into that. And then as far as the evening, we're definitely going to not be there past maybe 8 or 9 p.m.,
Yeah.
which is also in line with a lot of the local businesses and what they're already doing.
Because
We're-
because the parking
Mhm,
for that area,
mhm.
you're saying that there's 8 slots
Yes.
available?
Yes.
So, okay,
It's where,
Yeah.
it's where Papa Bears and
I know.
Were you looking for a goat yoga class or something like that? 'Cause
I was so gonna bring that up. I was like,
I don't think that's in the land use, right? No goats.
Hot yoga.
Oh, hot yoga. Any other questions? No? Thank you for
Thank you.
thank you.
answering the questions. It's not a public hearing item, correct? It is. Okay. Well, it doesn't say that this time, but I believe you. So being that it's a public hearing item, if there's anybody here who would like to speak for or against this item, please come on up, fill out the form and state your name.
Terry Hayes, Tri Lakes Chamber of Commerce in EDC. A lot of years ago, probably more than what I want to admit to, a group of staff and us got together to talk about the uses of downtown because we're being very protective, as you can imagine. And I have to say that this was one of those moments that why did we not include yoga? Because it really is perfect for our downtown, especially the clientele, before, after, going shopping, going to our restaurants, walking our trails. I just think it's an absolute perfect use, and I would hope that you guys approve it.
Great. Anybody else? Okay. Is there anybody online that would like to make a comment for or against this ordinance? No? Okay, then we'll bring it back for council comments or a motion.
I'll move to approve ordinance number 17, 2023, an ordinance approving a conditional use for 267B North Washington for recreation entertainment, indoor use in the downtown business zone district.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Councilmember Abbott,
Yes.
Councilmember Kimple,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem King,
Yes.
Councilmember Romanello,
Yes.
Mayor LaKind,
Yes.
Councilmember Chronic,
Yes.
Councilmember Fiorito.
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much. Congratulations and okay,
Yeah,
namaste.
Sign him up quick.
All right, we'll move on to resolution 48, 2023, a resolution approving intergovernmental agreement between the town of Monument and Monument Academy for school resource officers for the 2023-2024 school year. Chief Reagan.
Thank you, Mayor. As you probably saw in my write-up, that we've had a school resource officer with the Monument Academy for the last school year. They were stationed at their Eastern campus, which is their high school. And in speaking with the leadership of the Monument Academy, they've asked to not only continue that relationship, but to add a second school resource officer to the Monument Academy here off of Highway 105. They've agreed to the same payment structure as last year. That was just kind of a negotiation we did with them. Obviously, not knowing who the next SRO is going to be and what their pay scale would be, we kind of moved towards the higher range of the police officer scale. But the breakdown was to be they would pay 75% of the salary and we'd pay 25%. The breakdown there is that they're spending about 75% of their time at the school. The other 25% of the time they'll be with us through summer breaks, weekends, other breaks throughout the year. Were there any specific questions about what we wrote up?
Mr. Kimball.
So I understand the concept and I understand the, I believe in having the SRO.
Correct.
Yeah, I believe in having those. I'm just wondering, concern is, we're adding to the police force? Is that what we're doing? Or we're just taking a current officer that's already on the force?
So we would start with by taking an officer once we become full again, and then asking for another position in next year's budget.
Yeah, okay. So my big concern is Monument Academy, in the big scheme of things, is part of District 38. They do get funds from District 38. So why are we not providing, like on a rotational purpose, to all the schools? Because I mean, SROs are in high need. So
Totally agree.
And all the other schools in District 38 are struggling to get SROs, to find SROs and to hire them and to keep them in there. So I mean, again, I totally believe in this. I believe that there's a need. I'm just asking, should it not be shared? Should not an officer be rotated around to the various schools to show presence under this program instead of just having a contract with Monument Academy, who gets funding from District 38? They get per student, they get money from District 38.
Right.
It's in their financial budget if you read it, which I have. And Monument Academy is it's a great school. I subbed there when I first got here. I haven't since COVID hit. I sub limitedly in District 38, other District 38 schools. So I see this. I've gone through some of the drills. I've talked to some of the SROs, but I'd see a need for all the schools, not just Monument Academy. So that's why I want to pull that and have that discussion to better understand what's going on.
So I know Mr. Foreman has some stuff to add, but I would just say that our SRO program is still in its infancy. If it was up to me, we would have an officer in every school. There are officers, there's Epso County deputies in some of the schools that we've been in contact with the administration to take over at some point in time. It's not that we're precluding anyone from being a part of the program. This is just kind of who we started with, and we're absolutely willing to branch out and go from there to see how we can make it work, not just at Monument Academy, but anyone who wants the service.
Prior to Chief Regan being here, our former chief and I met with the school district superintendent and made that exact offer. We would love to have SROs at every District 38 school. Mm-hmm. And we've made that offer to them that they currently use El Paso County, and they are very satisfied with their service currently. Now, they're not precluding that they won't make a decision in the future. Once those SROs that they're using today may move on to other jobs, then they would come back to us for that service.
Yeah, I just know the SROs that in District 38 are being used, they're not there at the school the entire day. They're already bouncing around.
Is it also a function of the fact that D38 is not technically annexed within Town of Monument?
Both Monument Academy schools are not in the Town of Monument either. And so we've made that exception to where we will supply them with SROs. We would like to annex all the schools into the town because most of them are just right across our border. Mm-hmm. And so we'd love to be able to do that. But we have made that offer to the school district to supply them with, and like you said, full-time SROs. Ours are full-time. Theirs do bounce around. If they get a call somewhere else, they do leave the school. Yeah. That's not our plan. That's not what we do. We would rather form a relationship with our school kids because we see them all the time in Monument anyway, and so they're at the schools. We'd rather form that relationships through the SRO program at every school in Monument.
One final request, doesn't have to be today right now, but can you also look at potential for SRO for St. Pete's, which is right smack in the middle of our town, but it, again, doesn't have to be right now, but if you can,
I'd love to. So I want you to first know, I didn't forget about our conversation we've had on this before. And we're open to anything. I mean, if we can make it work and it's a service we can provide, we're absolutely open to it. Mm-hmm. I know when we originally talked, there was some concern about a parochial school. That isn't a concern, so that is something we can absolutely look into.
Thank you.
Again, the reason why I bring it up is you look at Monument Academy, how many students they have as compared to Palmer Ridge or Lewis Palmer High School, the ratio is the scale where I think the wealth needs to be spread, period.
Definitely.
Instead of.
We totally agree with you and have had that conversation. It has to be a choice of theirs to make because we could supply the service.
Yeah, if D38 is choosing to go with EPSO,
Yeah, but they're not there full-time and we're using town resources under a contract to support a smaller size school that's not within.
But
the
that's
town
because
limits.
Monument Academy wants it.
Yeah.
Are you suggesting that we don't provide it for Monument Academy because the rest of D38 has not approached us about it?
No, I'm not.
Because that would,
I think we're in violent agreement, but the issue is that D38 doesn't, not that they don't want them, but they believe, right, wrong, or indifferent, they believe that EPSO is providing that service for them now. Monument Academy seems to want it, and they're going to pay 75% of the cost. I think this effort is one small step that will allow the Monument Police Department to prove to D38 that full-time is probably best as opposed to some of the time. And it's not to cast aspersions on anybody else. It's just Monument Academy wants full-time and we're able to provide it to them.
Well, it's a private school that collects money versus a public school that they're somewhat struggling for understanding how they resource their funds.
And we do have another meeting with the school district superintendent also that we're going to bring this up again for this year.
I see it as a critical need.
Yep.
Not to show presence, to gain that confidence and that trust and that relationship, but also it's also peace of mind for the parents, teachers, staff.
We 100% agree with you.
And that is the model that we're bringing forward, is being present. And I think that's going to be part of our conversation going forward, is that we know the SROs that are currently in those schools aren't going to be there forever. And I think we're just making sure the door is always open for when that change is made, that maybe they would consider putting us there.
Yeah. So last question is, if there is a resource officer from the Monument Police, do they also, if there's a call, a distress or something else elsewhere, do they leave the school to go respond? Or are we taking members off the force out of public service and patrolling to just sit there at the school?
So they will leave for critical calls if need be, but the direction that they've been given is that they're primarily at the school.
Yeah.
And I will give you an example of our critical incident we had off of Knollwood just a couple months ago. That was our school resource officer that responded. Now it was after school hours.
Yeah.
But something like that, if someone's in distress, they're going to go.
Yeah. Because, and again, we're talking not one officer, we're talking, they're asking for 2 officers.
Correct.
Just to be clear, so we have one SRO now dedicated, and eventually we're going to have a second SRO dedicated, correct?
That is correct.
But until that time, we're pulling out of Hyde until we've got that second SRO hired and trained and ready to go. Is that?
So that's why we're not starting the second position till January.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I think I'm understanding your question just a little bit better, is that I'm not going to be pulling from patrol if I don't have the resources to do it.
Correct.
I would do that with enough people on the road and then move someone to an SRO position, asking for another position just to backfill and bolster the road. But yeah, we're not going to give up the safety and security on the road to fill the position.
Okay. Thank you.
And also a reminder that every one of our officers are also deputy sheriffs.
okay, if there's no more questions, we'll look for a motion.
Does there have to be public comment on that one too?
Is it public comment or is it because it's a resolution?
No, it's just a resolution.
Okay.
Public
Okay,
comment.
so I'll make a, where is it? Okay, I'll make a resolution to approve resolution number 48-2023, a resolution approving intergovernmental agreement between the town of Monument and Monument Academy for school resource officers for the 2023-2024 school year.
Second,
A motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Mayor Pro Tem King,
yes.
Councilmember Kimple,
I've voiced my concerns and my desire to see all of District 38 get treated the same or have the same opportunity or resource available. With that being said, yes.
Councilmember Fiorito,
Yes.
Councilmember Chronic,
Yes.
Councilmember Romanello,
Yes.
Councilmember Abbott,
Yes.
Mayor LaKind.
Yes. That motion passes 7-0. Next up, ordinance or Resolution 58, 2023, a resolution to approve a change order to the Wagner construction contract for the new 2 million gallon tank pipeline project. Mr. Tharnish, I'm not overly concerned about going through the entire presentation that you put into the packet. I've got some very specific questions as it pertains to the request for this change order so very, very late in the project. The first question is are you aware of when the 900 strands of fiber and the sewer line separately were laid as an actual month and date?
I believe the fiber and the sewer have been there for, I would say, at least a decade. Sewer line probably even longer.
Okay. And did our engineer do a proper locate during their engineering design work of this water line and take into account when they found the 900 pairs of fiber, 900 strands of fiber and the sewer line? Do we have an email correspondence or some notification as to when they actually found this?
Well, let me back up just a little bit. The fiber line is an AT&T fiber line, which if you look on the drawings when the contractors bid this project, it shows as a straight line running up alongside 105. But reality is when they put this line in the trench, it's like a big snake. It moves all over the place from one end of the right of way to the other. So we've had a lot of potholing along this project to try to locate. They go so far ahead, they pothole, the line's clear, they start digging, and then the next line, even though it's clear, somewhere in between there, the line snaked underneath, and they ended up hitting it. They hit out a couple times. It's been a little bit of a challenge when it comes to trying to get a clear path. We have requirements as far as spacing goes with other utilities. We have a 10-foot horizontal clearance we have to make, and we have an 18-inch vertical clearance. And the fiber has been in the way on several occasions. AT&T will just tell you, well, that's when we put it in, that's the way it got put in. Palm Lake Sanitation line has been in the ground a long time, and there was enough clearance originally for that. The one in question tonight is a storm outlet box that crosses underneath 105 that ended up moving their lines in a very narrow area. And when they went through to try to put the water line in, they found we didn't have clearance on either way with the fiber and the sewers. So we went to Palmer Lake Sanitation and said, can we cut your line, put our water in there, and then we'll encase it, which is the normal procedure to do this. And Palmer Lake Sanitation said, don't touch our line. So that put us in a little bit of a bind. The clear path for this, after having several meetings with the contractor and the engineer, is to bore underneath that outlet box so that we maintain all of our clearances, and it gives us a straight path to continue on. So I guess the short answer is, I think based on the drawings and the potholing that's been done, we've done a pretty thorough job at trying to stay ahead and avoid these these interferences or these where we're snagging a line, unmarked line. So far, AT&T has been coming out to do their repairs. There's been no charge to the contractor or us because they understand that it wasn't put in a straight line like the drawings show. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Is we're in a very narrow area where our options are pretty limited. One of the pros and cons I listed on the background paper here was that if this didn't get approved, then we would have to stay the original course, which means now we're going to have to cut Palmer Lake sanitation line, whether they want it or not, because that's the only path to get to clearance. And we thought that the best path for us to avoid any future issues, if we have to dig that line up, would be to stay as straight as we can on the current path.
I'm assuming Palmer Lake Sanitation probably thought the same thing, that they would put their line in what they thought was the best position and didn't think that the town of Monument was going to come along and cut it.
Yes, I have.
So what's our legal jeopardy for cutting their line after they said no?
I don't know. I don't know what would happen other than.
We can't go cutting another municipality's line that says you can't cut it, whether we like it or not.
Right.
I'm sorry, but I've been on this whole water tank thing just after the state Supreme Court gave us the blessing to start, as has Councilmember Romanello. And frankly, I'm tired of the cost overruns due to insufficient efforts by the engineers, and it keeps costing us money. So in my opinion, Forest Green should be paying this $55,000 and not the town of Monument, whether we have the money or not. And we should have been on top of them to make sure their locators were going out and making sure they knew the fiber wasn't in a straight line. Because as you said, it's been there for a decade. So clearly someone wasn't following how to locate fiber and sewer, which to me makes absolutely no sense. Now, I don't know if the rest of you have read through this, but you know, to me, this is shoddy work. And Forsgren, is it?
Yes.
I don't see why we continue to use them if they don't know how to locate fiber and sewer. So if they're watching or if they're here, they should be put on notice that if they can't find fiber and sewer on a multi-million-dollar project like this, and we keep having cost overruns to the taxpayers, then we don't need them as a provider.
I have a question that's kind of in line with that, Mayor. It appears to me that somehow the contract got written such that we're the only people who are obligated to pay for whatever mistakes are made, and that bothers me greatly.
I could add to that a little bit. You know, when been doing projects along these lines for a long time, and if it's avoidable, by all means, we or the contractor will avoid any kind of interference. But when you have a project like this and the utilities are not per design and the potholes are showing up negative and you end up hitting a line, right now the expense for hitting a line has been on the utilities, not been on us, not been on the contractor. But what we're trying to do in this specific case is avoid that potential of hitting another section of whether it's a sewer or a fiber. The sewer is marked, and that wasn't as much of a concern as the AT&T line on this particular project.
Why is it that Palmer Lake won't agree to let us do what needs to be done here?
My understanding is Palmer Lake is very touchy about any break in their line, and these are pretty old lines. As far as we could tell, there's only one customer that feeds into that particular section, so it wasn't too big a deal for us to say, yeah, we'll just cut it. But when we talked to Palmer Lake Sanitation, they're pretty adamant about we don't want you touching our line. So that's the point where we have to make a decision. Do we fight that battle and drag things out, or do we come up with an alternative method that would avoid both utilities and conflict?
Okay,
And that's kind of where we're at.
And what I'm hearing is No matter what path we take, it's going to cost us. Right? I mean,
It will, but there's an offset cost, and you'll see it in the documents where the costs for the straight line and the sections were deducted from the cost of the bore. That $55,000 change order is which is above what the original plan called for. And when we look at a project this large that's in the millions of dollars, our own policies have us look at any change order that exceeds 5%. It's supposed to go back to the originally approving authority. This particular change order in particular is about 0.8% from the last change order. So there's been a lot of change orders, but the majority of them have been fairly small considering the size of the project. Overall, I think since the project started, the costs for change orders has come out to be about 2.2%. And that's for everything since the beginning of the project. And this is, again, 5.5 miles of two 12-inch lines running halfway together, and then they split apart. One's a supply line, one's a return line. So that's kind of where the overall costs are. I understand the concern about costing taxpayers more as we go along, but when we look at this from an engineering standpoint and the overall project, I believe that we've done what we can to try to avoid anything that's going to cause us a problem. And the problem here is that you're dealing with a fiber that, even though the drawings show one thing and the potholing is going ahead, we've already run into some cost overruns on the amount of potholing that was originally planned. And we're kind of absorbing that within the project for now. But in this case, it just seemed like the good solution to prevent any issues in that particular area. As we get past this one location, the area for us to put the line in is much more clear. The fiber is far enough away that even if it did move, we're not anticipating any more potential, hitting of those lines.
do we know that for certain?
Yeah, you can't guarantee that you won't come across fiber again.
No, we can't guarantee, but we're definitely got a good handle on how it's running through the trenches.
There's enough. You're saying that there's enough separation at beyond this point that the factors is significantly reduced from this section as compared to this section.
I believe it's a lot less than what we've encountered so far, just because of the terrain that we're encountering now and the right-of-way off that side of the highway. It's a 100-foot right-of-way on 105. And so we've got enough room. The storm inlet box is kind of part of the issue because it comes out from the road quite a bit. And just looking at the way things are laid out, that's probably why the fiber and the sewer are where they are, is because of that original box. But we have the ability to bore with a fusible pipe, which would enable us a pretty good shot at not having any future leaks rather than having a joint underneath that particular area.
So the boring, if you take back out the credit, is about $400 a linear foot. Is that pretty typical for something like this?
I hadn't seen that 400 foot. I got some prices based on the documents that are attached per foot. It's a little more expensive than just laying straight pipe, but you have setup costs, you have bore pits at either end. That's where the costs are adding up.
Right, but I mean, if you took 85,000 and 225 feet, it's more or less $400 a linear foot.
Boring is expensive, but it's in the long run, it's best, and it also reduces overall impacts to everything else that's around you.
I'm not doubting that. It just seems expensive, and I'm just wondering if there's anything that they could do to help us out with this.
No, it's just expensive. It's just expensive. I think one factor that we should, and Tom hit on this, is the fact that AT&T has come out however many times to to address their issue, it clearly indicates that someone screwed up on the AT&T end, and they're willing to kind of play with us. It sounds like, not play with, but they're willing to work with us. And it doesn't look like they're charging us for any issues. I still think the mayor has a point that these locates are supposed to kind of give you an idea of where these things are and are not. So I would really like an attempt made to do an after action of where it went wrong. Who, if you want to place a blame, great, but I'm more interested in how do we do this better the next time, because this isn't the last water tank we're going to build.
Well, and the fiber should be easy to find.
Right, but the key word being should, but somehow,
No, but when Jackson Creek construction was starting to become a topic, the Air Force was very clear very early on, as soon as they got word, do not screw up our fiber, right? They knew exactly where we were going.
Yep.
I didn't hear the same thing, right? This water tank and the pipeline has been a topic for a couple of years now, and AT&T didn't come run into town hall that I heard to say, don't screw up our fiber line.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Right. So I don't know that I trust that you won't be back here again asking for more money because you run into another sewer line or another 900 strands of fiber. I don't believe it. So what can you do to guarantee with AT&T and Forsgren and Palmer Lake that if you were to get this approved and you were to go through the process of doing your boring and connecting the fused lines, that this isn't going to happen again?
Well, I don't have a magic ball in front of me. I can't guarantee that they're not going to be an issue. We got about, I don't know, maybe 1,500 feet of line left, roughly, to finish this. There's no more storm drain inlets that I'm aware of between this and the finish line. So there's a good chance that this won't happen, or we shouldn't run into interference, not anticipating it.
I guess what I'm looking for is that someone's going to take the initiative to get a hold of Forsgren, go out there and relocate everything that's in your path for your water line, and come back and tell the council via email that we've done our due diligence with all the parties in play, and we won't be coming back to you with more money because we've already located and determined that the rest of the water line is not going to impact anything. That is what I'm looking for.
We can do that. We'll get that to you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, then if someone would like to provide a motion for this resolution.
I'll make a motion to accept resolution number 58-2023, a resolution to approve a change order to the Wagner construction contract for the new 2 million gallon tank pipeline project.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
So before I respond, doesn't the approval come with a condition? Should we add that they come back?
I trust that Mr. Foreman will get what we need.
Then yes.
Mayor Pro Tem King,
Yes.
Councilmember Chronic,
Yes.
Councilmember Kimball.
Yes.
That motion passes 6-1. Okay, we'll move on to Ms. Hogan would like to discuss a festival permit application that has been brought to us for the Bines and Brews.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize for bringing this to you late, but I just received this application today, and I was concerned because we have canceled the August 21st regular meeting that I didn't want to wait until September 5th and to allow the applicant more time to know if their application is going to be approved or not. Regardless, Colorado Brewers Group, which is Pikes Peak Brewing Company, submitted an application for a festival permit late this afternoon. I reviewed the application and found that the applicant does meet the qualifications outlined in Colorado Revised Statutes 44.3.404, in that the application specifies the license premise of the festival. The application was submitted within the required timeframe. A letter of authorization to use the license premise was supplied. Past festivals have not had a history of violation of the Colorado Liquor Code or local ordinances, and the applicant attached the required security and control plan and attested that it has been circulated and agreed upon by all participating licenses. So what I'm asking is if you are comfortable with it, because this application does need to be approved by the local licensing authority, which is the town council, that you could make a motion to approve such alcohol festival permit, and then I could send it on to the state for the state's required approval as well. And I'm available if you have any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Hogan about
I'm okay with it.
I knew you would be.
I see no issues, except the part where it doesn't say we get free beer. There's the.
Jim's buying.
Oh, okay, yeah, Jim's buying. That's good then.
No, no, Forsgren's buying.
Okay.
I couldn't resist that one.
All right, good one.
I'm looking at the last page, just want to make sure. It says valid only for the following periods: event date, July 4th, and then September 16th.
The last page of what I handed you is actually the special event liquor permit that was issued to the Chamber of Commerce. The way that a festival permit works is that it has to be on a licensed premise. The Chamber of Commerce submitted a special event liquor permit application to temporarily license the area where the Bines and Brews event festival is held. The group of brewers gets together, and one of them submits the application on behalf of the group of brewers to do the festival on that licensed premise. So the reason I included that, the Chamber of Commerce's special event liquor permit in that, is so that you would realize that they are working on a licensed premise as required by the festival permit rules.
Yeah, I know, I understand that, but I'm just looking at the last page where it says event date, July 4th, and then event date, September 16th.
Because when the Chamber of Commerce applied for their special event liquor permit, you can do up to 15 events per calendar year. So they put both their beer garden for July 4th and the Bines and Brews event on one application too, so that they wouldn't have to pay for two application fees.
Yeah, just.
Okay. Any questions from anybody?
So I had a question. I don't know if you know the answer to this. So there's a lot of people on this list. Are they having like little booths set up in the area? I've never been, so.
Yeah, they do. And Terry, if she's willing, could give you more color on the Bines and Brews Festival. I have been a couple of times, and yeah, there's little kiosks from a lot of different breweries, not only breweries too,
Sure.
Wineries.
Okay, no, that's all right.
Terry, you have a map, right,
distilleries.
where all the booths are going to be? It's a
there?
lot of fun.
Well, it just seems like a small space. That's all I'm.
It's a big space.
Is it? Okay,
Coupons?
thank you. That's sufficient. Thank you so much.
She's asking if you want to mimosa.
All right, well,
So-
is there any other questions?
No, so this is a resolution then, or?
No, we're just,
Oh,
it's a motion in the blind. Just
Oh.
throw it out there if you want to make
okay,
it.
so I'll
It's
make
it's written right there.
I did include a suggested motion just to hit all the details. It's on the
Yeah. So
bottom
I'll
of the
make a
front
motion
page.
to approve an alcohol beverage festival permit to Colorado Brewers Group LLC, DBA Pikes Peak Brewing Company, to conduct a festival at Limbach Park on September 16th from 1 to 5 p.m.
Second.
Second.
We have multiple seconds.
We just.
Ms. Hogan?
Mayor LaKind,
Yes.
Councilmember Kimple,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem King,
Yes.
Councilmember Abbott,
Yes.
Councilmember Chronic,
Yes.
Councilmember Fiorito,
Yes.
Councilmember Romanello.
Yes.
All right, that motion passes 7-0. Next up is public comment. Individuals attending in person may raise their hand to indicate their desire to comment. Individuals attending via Teams may raise their hand digitally to comment via connected devices. Please lower your hand when finished with your comments. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anybody in the public that would like to speak? Sir? If you could put your name and everything down there and state it.
Mayor, council, it's been a long time since I've been able to come, but I'd like to address 3 quick issues. And it all involves traffic issues on Baptist and Forest Lake. Okay, we've got major issues over there with the new developments that have come in recently. The traffic has gotten really substantial coming through there. And the primary one is on Willow Ranch and Forest Lake. It's really almost a blind intersection there. There have been several near misses. I had the opportunity to talk to Jeff the other day about it, and I wanted to come to get you guys involved as well. I was almost T-boned, and I drove into the island that is right there to avoid it. And that's what got me going again on this. But also a follow-up, I believe it was Charles, last year, we talked about the island that is there because of the blind spot that as you come down the hill, the buses have hit their brakes with people going through the crosswalks there. So we're asking that the traffic department or somebody come out and evaluate what's going on at that intersection right there. And again, that's Willow Ranch and Forest Lake. The other thing I wanted to mention real quick is just to find out where we stand with the roundabout at Travazo. Last year, I think we were told that it was going to be May, March, that it was supposed to get started. It's nowhere in the beginning, what am I say, realm of getting it started and just trying to find out where CDOT is with that.
Wouldn't that be great to know?
It would be. It would be because it's really getting bad. And as you see, oh, go ahead.
I'll let you know. So Wednesday, that's 2 days, I'll be at the PPACG meeting. You know who will be sitting there next to me? CDOT.
Okay.
We'll be having a talk.
That would be great because as you see the development of the Quick Trip right there, it's a mess. And with the parking that's going with the big rigs that are on Travazo, and that is creating a bigger problem. We've addressed this a year or so ago about the concerns over there.
I know there's a little bit of pushback with some of the landowners over there, so I don't know. That's about all I know.
Yeah, but the parking on the public streets by the big rigs is not supposed to be happening.
Yeah.
And we have police officers out there every day writing tickets and making them move.
Yeah, it is really bad. So the police department, I'm sure you guys are aware of it, what's going on there. And then the last one that I got real quick is when we spoke with El Paso County last year about the island being removed that's there at Pelican Bay and Willow Ranch right there. They said it was going to be the responsibility of the developer to remove that island. That was a condition that they made when they started to do the development there. In my investigating who was responsible for that corner and finding out City of Monument and El Paso County is kind of a combination right there because it's unincorporated right there. Talked to a person at Tri-View Metro, and they had just left a meeting with Tri-View and the developer was there and they were saying that they were not going to remove that. However.
All right, sir, we're over the 3 minutes.
Done. Okay, those are 3 things.
If you could just have him get with me, we'll sit down and talk about all
You know
those
how to
issues.
get a hold of him, right?
Yeah, we've talked a couple times.
Okay,
Yeah.
I figured. All right,
Okay,
thank you.
Cool, thank you.
Is there anybody else? Haley.
Thank you.
No, my opportunity to come chat with you guys. Good evening, council members and town staff. Coming up is the month of September. We'll blink and it'll be fall. And September is National Hunger Awareness Month. Last year, you guys were able to turn the lights leading in on 2nd Street orange in support of National Hunger Awareness Month. I don't know if the prairie dogs have eaten through all the wires, but whatever wires are still connected, or if the lights are still being turned on, I just wanted to make a request that the town support us in changing the lights to orange to show their support of Hunger Awareness Month. We're going to be doing a lot of campaign awareness around the effort, and so we're just asking for your support to join in. So that's it.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wants public comment? Jeff?
Thank you, Mayor.
You can come up. You're going to be discussing something that's not related to something on the agenda, right?
Yes.
Then can you?
Okay.
And while you're walking up, Mr. Foreman, lights on 2nd Street Hunger Awareness Month coming up in September. Can we make them orange?
Orange.
Right, provided that the lights still work.
We are looking into that. I will get with Madeline and
Cool.
we were working on that last week.
Hi.
Hi. So as you all know, we have the next town council meeting is actually, what's that?
Oh, no, you're good, Jeff.
He's new.
Right afterwards, I will.
There you go.
So for the 21st, we have a training with you all and with Planning Commission. And the question that came up in working with the consultant that we're working with to put up that material together, we were wondering if it was necessary for us to provide you a packet. It's not resolutions, there's no ordinances. We're going to be doing a training session and we're going to be putting together a lot of those materials ahead of time. So the consultant was asking for a little bit more time. Was wondering if that would be all right if we not provide you with a packet up ahead of time. It's going to be kind of a classroom setting. We're just going to be kind of going over one-on-one planning, one-on-one.
So we'll have to take notes.
Well, we have to-
You'll
I know
have a
that you
you'll have a
photographic
presentation.
Memory, Mayor, and so.
Oh, no,
it
I
won't be
don't.
An issue.
You'll have a presentation and we'll be able to ask questions, all the parties.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be
Does
a
anybody have
classroom
a problem
setting.
with not having packets sent to
It's
us?
going to be Teams accessible.
Yes, yeah, it will be a public meeting and it will be projected out on Teams and it will be on YouTube. Yes.
You won't be here?
No.
Okay.
I'll be in Fort Robinson.
Okay.
I
That
think
sounds, well,
most
I've been
of you
there.
will be in attendance is what our understanding was.
But the packets will be here.
We'll have packets
That
for you
day.
at the meeting. You'll be certainly able to take notes and whatnot. I just wanted to double check the consultant was asking. All right,
That's fine.
thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Yeah, no problem.
All
I
right,
will
is there
fill
any,
this out.
is there anybody online that would like to make a comment? Do we have any hands raised? No? Okay, anybody else here? Okay, we'll end public comments, no council authorization items. Oh, we do have one, Creek Week proclamation. Ms. Hogan?
I was just approached by the Fountain Creek watershed to ask if the council would be willing to make a Creek Week proclamation. And it actually would be September 18th because the meeting is the 18th and I wrote down the 19th, so on the agenda.
Okay,
But I thought I would ask if you would be willing to make that proclamation. So I
sure.
could
If
pass that along.
Councilmember Romanello is here to speak to it, right?
I am, and we do that every year, and that would be
Yep.
great. I also have a question for Finance or Mr. Foreman. I did get a note from Ally, our Executive Director, about our agreed upon and budgeted contribution to the Fountain Creek. Has that been accomplished?
I turned that in and I think they're getting a check out this week.
Okay, I'll let her know. Thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you. All right, council comments. We've got one major one to go over that I'd like to bring up, and that is the ethics and code of conduct work that's been conducted as part of the charter. As you're all aware, we are required to create one for the council and other boards and committees and staff. Has everybody had a chance to look through the email that Mr. Cole has sent out and provide questions, or if they'd like to bring them up now? Oh, Allison sent out, sorry. Okay, my bad.
I've read through some of it. I'm still going through it, but no questions so far.
Okay, and Councilmember Romanello, have you had a chance to look through it?
I read through it once, but I've been on a business trip in LA and have not had time to dive into it completely.
Okay, I think what I'd like to see is it get widely disseminated to staff for their so for the directors to be able to review it and comment, make questions, and bring them back to the council to review any changes that you would like to see. Also to the Planning Commission, so they could see it as well, because we're all going to be subject to it. So this was the first draft that was put together, and our attorneys are to review it to make sure it meets legal. We don't violate any state statutes in the process. But I figure another couple of months and we should have this nailed down to codify. You guys go with that? Okay, any other council comments?
No, go ahead.
Do we have a status of, I know we talked about it a couple weeks ago about the, putting some teeth in the ordinance about the
Violations.
yeah, the violations for the builders. Do we have any headway on that?
Yes, they're working on that, but they also found in the ordinance that there is an opportunity for us to fine them. And so we did find a section in the ordinance. So we are going to put more teeth into it. So they are bringing that to the council. But they're also found a way that we could get that. We've met with a lot of the builders. We met with a lot of the, we've sent out letters. And so far the complaints have ended. We haven't received any so far. And so if you have some, please send them to me so we can address them, because no one's contacted us about any of those complaints. But we also, just to update you, some of the businesses along 105 will be receiving some fines for highweeds and grass. We have been working with them for over 2 months and we still don't have compliance. So they will be receiving some too.
Okay.
I have a list. I have a list of violators that was provided to me by the police department today. So that I requested.
Okay.
I do have one comment, is more of a shout out to MPD and Monument Fire Department and EPSO. What else came out? The Promontory Point Neighborhood Watch had the National Night Out. For those that don't know, National Night Out is a national level event held by all of the neighborhood watches countrywide to get together during a time period in August to kind of take back the night, if you will. And my better half runs the neighborhood watch. And so the Monument Police Department and Monument Fire, they behaved. They were nice to each other. Yeah, they came out and great showing. Corporal Ho showed off pink handcuffs to my kids. They're very well behaved recently, so that's great. So I appreciate that. Yeah, shout out to the fire department and police. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. If there's no other comments.
I have one.
What?
This is actually for the future because the presentation tonight, Jeff, was, as the mayor said, very detailed, exceptional, and kind of laid the groundwork. I think, though, for the future, since we're going to be doing another revision of the comp plan, we probably need to look at that a little more specifically, rather than leaving things to a subjective interpretation. When I hear generally consistent and I can't even remember, read my substantial compliance, those don't mean anything to me. It doesn't say anything one way or the other. So I'm just, what I would like to see is when the comp plan comes to being done, to request that it be much more specific so we don't have to worry about someone's interpretation of what the intent was originally, because it was 7 years ago. Who knows? So that my comp. I appreciate what you went through. You did a superb job.
Thank you for making that comment, Councilmember Chronic. I agree with you 100%. There are some challenges with that, in that not only is that challenge that you raise with that language related to the comp plan, it's also pretty pervasive within our current code that's codified. And so that is something that we're going to need to work through over time. And I just wanted to add that to your comment so that you're all very aware of that. And again, thank you for entertaining or allowing me to entertain you with that thorough slide deck. It was to try and set a point, and I meant to do it with respect. So I think it was received that way, and I want to work with you in the future so that we can come to more clear understandings across the board with these different tools and policies that we have at our disposal to try and govern properly. So thank you for that comment.
You bet. One suggestion, next time, could you do it with a little background music? Thank you.
And just to let you know,
just let me know what
little,
genre you like.
He had a little help with that from our town attorney here.
That doesn't surprise me now.
Yes.
All right.
And we'll talk
Any
about
other-
some of this at your workshop, but, we want to make sure that your decisions can be well defended, and when your code says certain criteria, we want to make sure a presentation shows that it meets the criteria, or if it doesn't, it shows that, so that you have an informed decision that's going to be upheld.
So I want to, that is a segue into something that I want to just throw out on the table here. Because to me, and from what I'm reading, this state in a whole is way overbuilding multifamily rentals. And it seems to me that at some point we're going to have a glut of those. I mean, right now the vacancy rate's going up, and everywhere you turn, there's thousands of these units. And I don't know, short of the M word, moratorium, which I know nobody wants to talk about, but I don't know, short of that, how we can slow that process down until we can catch up and figure out, what is really going to be needed. Because I don't think anybody wants to have 2,000 units sitting here and half of them are vacant. So I don't know that you can answer that. I just want to get that kind of out on the table because I just see it coming.
Thank you for that comment. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Aye.
Bye.